experts urge government to increase support for community mental health facilities. EC considers a more transparent process of certifying final results in next year's elections. And Russia mourns victims of Saturday's cyanide plane crash. Good evening. Thank you so much for joining us. This is News Hour on GBC24 and GTV with Conrad Kakraba. Health experts are urging the government to increase support for community mental health facilities to make it possible for the poor and vulnerable to access mental treatment within the proximity of their communities. They suggest that the National Health Insurance Scheme should, as a matter of urgency, include mental treatment in their drug list in view of the high cost involved. The head and senior specialist at the Department of Psychiatry at the Komfo-Anokye Teaching Hospital, Dr. Gordon Donner, made this fervent appeal at a forum to commemorate Mental Health Month at the Komfo-Anokye Teaching Hospital in Kumasi.
It is common to come across people with mental health problems. However, attention to its care and treatment is low, and this has provided an avenue for spiritualists to take over cases that orthodox medicine can easily manage if detected and reported earlier. In Ghana, psychiatric care began receiving some attention in the early 80s when Dr. Akwesi Osei started a psychiatric clinic at the Komfo-Anokye Teaching Hospital. Dr. Donner was concerned about the poor psychiatrist-patient ratio in most public hospitals in the country. He said diagnosis of mentally ill patients seen at the psychiatric department at CAF shows that the use of narcotic drugs such as cocaine and marijuana account for a chunk of cases and called for intensified public education on its dangers. Dr. Donner was also worried about patients who are taken to prayer camps and herbalists, hoping to heal them. He said it is possible to treat mental illness when detected early before complications set in.
It is not uncommon for a patient to be unceremoniously removed from hospital by a relative in order to consult a traditional or spiritual healer because of a widely held belief that spiritual, supernatural evil powers cause psychiatric illness.
The chief executive of the Komfo-Anokye Teaching Hospital, Dr. Joseph Akbalu, cautioned against stigmatizing people with mental illness and rather supports their rehabilitation and reintegration into society. An evangelist and former hip life artist and drug addict, Lord Kenya, said mental illness is not a death warrant, but with proper care, a mentally ill person can become productive. The lecture had the topic, Psychiatry Practice in the General Hospital setting.
The Ministry of Food and Agriculture is keeping Gari processors in the Bono Ahafo region abreast of standard modern processing trends. The latest group to benefit from this MOFA interaction are those from Kintampo North and South municipalities.
This is the second time the Ministry of Food and Agriculture is organizing such field trips for Gari processors in Bono Ahafo. Participants are offered the opportunity to see at first hand Gari processing in an improved and hygienic manner. At the Isioja Agro Processing Facility in Techiman North, the participants were taken through steps involved in handling cassava before processing. The regional director of the Agric Ministry, Dr. Cyril Quist, said the support is not only to improve food safety, but also add value to Gari to increase the income of the processors. Environmental officers from both Kintampo North and South encouraged participants to practice good hygiene at all times. Another area of interest was the fact that most of the processors rarely went for medical checkups, and this is considered as one of the factors for contamination. A value addition officer for women in agric development, Ms. Teresa Wayo, schooled participants on proper value addition of products made from tuber and urged them to make quality their hallmark rather than quantity.
The Gari looks appealing and costs 4 cedis. And this one costs the same price, but it is smaller in size because of its unique packaging. This last one costs 10 cedis because it is uniquely packaged.
For complying with Gari processing regulations in the Techiman area, Mrs. Faustina Ejewa's processing center, Esuja Agro Processing at Esui near Techiman, was adjudged one of the best processing centers. As part of her award, the MOFA IFAD Roots Tuber Improvement Marketing Program are supporting her operations. She shared her 20 years of experience in the business. Through this initiative, the ministry hopes to improve the operations of food processors in the region.
For the 2016 general elections, the chairperson of the Electoral Commission, Mrs. Charlotte Osei, says the commission would abolish the strong room principle and rather introduce a more transparent and inclusive process. She said a bigger room would be secured for receiving and certifying constituency results in a more transparent process where cameras and screens would be mounted and a lot more people allowed to patronize the chamber. Following the recent bird flu outbreak, the government has so far made 11 million Ghana cedis available to deal with the problem in the country. 3.5 million cedis of the amount is being used to compensate poultry farmers who have lost their birds to the flu. So far, about 70,000 birds have been destroyed at farms in the Greater Accra, Eastern, Ashanti and Central regions. The Ashanti Regional Director of the Veterinary Services, Dr. Kofi Kwansa Filson, said the disease is still in the country and therefore cautioned poultry farmers to adopt precautionary measures to protect their farms. The Ghana Army has organized a land combat power demonstration at Bundase for students of the Ghana Armed Forces Command and Staff College Senior Division. This is to show their capability during combat and to prove their readiness to defend the nation at all times. The Land Combat Power demonstration, dubbed Green Tarantula, saw the display of various armaments used by the Ghana Army during warfare. The exercise was to demonstrate to Ghanaians the land combat capabilities of the Ghana Army during combat. It also served as a routine collective training to sharpen the skills of participants in the application of their respective tactics, techniques and procedures. This is a method used by the Army to build confidence of participants, instill the warrior spirit in troops and ensure teamwork.
PR5 and PR7 XL missile, 200 kg bombs.
At the end of the training session, the students said the exercise had helped them to practically visualize the geographic concepts of deep, close and rear operations. The exercise was open to the public. The KNUST Africa Institute of Sanitation and Waste Management has launched a program to equip waste management officials with the needed expertise to better handle waste disposal in the various MMDAs. At a ceremony to launch the program, the provost of the KNUST Africa Institute of Sanitation and Waste Management, Professor Ernest Yamful, said the program has become necessary because even though the sanitation and waste management functions have been decentralized to the MMDAs, their capacities have not been developed to effectively manage waste.
The institute, known as Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology Africa Institute of Sanitation and Waste Management, KASWAM, is a collaboration between KNUST and Zoomlion Ghana Limited. Being the first of its kind in Africa, the institute serves as an education and training resource for sanitation and environmental management experts. It concentrates its efforts in the areas of research and development, provide public-private consultancy services, as well as tertiary education. Its latest addition is the Metropolitan, Municipal and District Assemblies program, which aims at equipping waste management officials with the MMDAs with the relevant knowledge to keep the country clean. Speakers at the launch of the program were unanimous in their views that the rise in urban population had put a significant strain on the social infrastructure in urban areas. Therefore, the ability of cities to manage the sanitation and waste implications must be given priority attention.
This area has serious investment, but tapping and using it to benefit of society and communities is not being achieved. Then what is the issue? The issue is that bringing in policymakers like you from the district assemblies, Ministry of Local Government and other agencies, then we all look at what is the issue.
The provost of the KNUST Africa Institute of Sanitation and Waste Management, Professor Ernest Yamful, said one of the objectives of the MMDA's program is to bridge the gap between industry and academia in the field of waste management.
The program is quite comprehensive and broad-based. So we have, for example, entrepreneurship in waste management, we have waste financing, we have project management. And so we are thinking that the students who graduate from the program will have this broad background, but also the in-depth knowledge to be able to tackle the challenges that they face.
Effectively managing waste continues to be a Herculean task for city authorities, and it appears there are no clear policy guidelines to manage waste in the country, while local governments have also not been able to enforce sanction against people who deliberately flout simple and basic rules of environmental hygiene. Abdulhai Mumin, GBC24, Accra.
Staff of the GBC have been reminded that a negotiation for conditions of service will not be emphasized on only from the demand point of view, but rather in totality of what has been generated through their service into the kitty. The General Secretary of the Public Services Workers Union, Mr. Richard Ampabin, gave the reminder at the 4th Quadrennial Delegates Conference of the GBC Divisional Union of the PSW in Kumasi.
The theme for the three-day conference was productivity, sound management and job security in the digital age, the role of the union. A key activity of the conference was the election of national officers for the next 4 years. Delegates also took stock of the performance of the divisional union, the operations of corporate GBC, and mapped out strategies to improve on the performance of staff. The immediate past divisional chairman, Mr. Louise Darkon, called for hard work and discipline from unionized staff of the corporation so that the vision of GBC can be achieved. The Deputy Director General of GBC, Mrs. Francisca Ashito-Dunton, said management will count on the GBC Divisional Union for maximum support in all its efforts to enable GBC to deliver on its mandate in the digital age.
GBC has always been a leader, and even as of now, everybody is looking up to GBC to lead this migration process. What it means is that we will need the cooperation of all management, the union, the workforce, to be able to continue to lead this process in order to ensure that GBC retains its place as they say, the godfather of broadcasting in Ghana.
The General Secretary of the Public Services Workers Union, Mr. Richard Ampabin, urged staff of the GBC to embrace change, especially change that brings progress, as this is the only way GBC will survive and remain relevant.
On digital age, does it mean we need all the hands at Ghana Broadcasting Corporation? That's the first query as a workers' leader that I had to throw out. And the response is that as much as possible, we keep all hands.
The Ghana Armed Forces and the Veterans Administration Ghana have launched the 2015 Poppy Appeal. This annual request to support ex-servicemen was launched at the military band concert in Accra. In his appeal, the Chief of Defence Staff, Vice Admiral Matthew Kwashi, urged all to support the great men who sacrificed their lives for the nation.
On 11th November each year, the world celebrates the Poppy's Day. also known as Remembrance Day. The poppy stands for those who lost their lives in the First and Second World War and other conflicts. The Veterans Administration Ghana runs the affairs of all ex-servicemen with support from the government, income-generating activities, including the sale of poppies. The military band concert was therefore organized to raise funds to support the gallant men, most of whom live in the 3 Legions villages across the country. There were performances from the Ghana Armed Forces Central Band, made up of the Regimental Band and the Dance Band. The Security Services Association Choir and the Ghana Dance Ensemble also performed. The Chief of Defense Staff, Vice Admiral Matthew Kwashi, launched the 2015 Poppy Appeal.
Those events that caused the wars are unfortunately with us today. The numerous peacekeeping operations in which our troops are involved in today still persist. I call on all Ghanaians to patronize the red poppy and wear it to remind ourselves that war, no matter where it starts, is retrogressive.
The poppy flower will be sold from now till the International Poppy Day is marked in November.
GBC's TV license collection team on Sunday made a stopover at the Bethel Methodist Church at Kokomlemle in Accra. This follows an earlier education session with members on the TV license fee.
To make the payment of TV license fee more convenient to the public, the Ghana Broadcasting Corporation has been moving closer to the people through the mobile team. The latest place visited was the premises of the Bethel Methodist Church at Kokomlemle. The Superintendent Minister of the church, Very Reverend Dr. Henry Ampao Esiedu, and some members of the church came to pay the fee. The Superintendent Minister urged other members of the church and the public to fulfill their civic responsibility.
The TV license is a must. It is the signals that we receive that really necessitates for us to pay for the license. And so once we receive signals, all of us are expected to pay. I'm urging ourselves that we should all pay so we can get better quality viewing.
A member of the TV license mobile team, Mr. Felix Okai Amankwa, briefed our news team on the progress of the exercise.
The victims of Saturday's Sinai plane crash. Flags flew at half-mast in Moscow as investigations were launched into Egypt's accident that killed all 224 passengers on board. Egyptian Prime Minister Sharif Ismail visited the crash site on Sunday. The Airbus A321-200, operated by the Moscow-based Metrojet airline, crashed in a remote mountainous part of the Sinai Peninsula 23 minutes after taking off from Sharm el-Sheikh on Saturday morning. The plane was flying to St. Petersburg, carrying mainly Russian tourists returning from holidays in the popular Red Sea resort. Ukrainians laid flowers and light candles in memory of victims at the Russian embassy in Kiev, Ukraine. And President Vladimir Putin, whose office announced a day of national mourning, was however absent from the screens, and some Russians criticized him for failing to speak to the nation about the tragedy. In sports, one young rugby fan left Twickenham with the ultimate souvenir after Sonny Bill Williams handed him his winner's medal. But the youngster was lucky to make it to his hero after being smoked by a security guard as he was tackled to the turf. Charlie Lyons raced onto the pitch to celebrate with his all-black heroes as they completed their lap of honor following New Zealand's 34-17 win over Australia when he was tackled to the ground by a member of security. But double World Cup winner Williams picked the 15-year-old up, from the floor and allowed him to join in the celebrations with the players before draping the medal over his neck. And have you ever wondered what you will do if after 16 years you realize that your child was swapped at birth and that you have been raising someone else's child? Well, the movie Sogbolisa unfolds such a scenario. We had a chat with some of the cast and the director of the movie.
Sogbolisa means the Almighty God, creator of the heavens and the earth.
Okay, what was the motivation for writing the movie?
People think tradition is fetish. Meanwhile, there is only a thin line, and it is not everything which is fetish. So you have to educate them through movie to know that certain practices in the traditional way are not fetish yet. Now, the local language is also making inroads. Hitherto, most of the stars we know in the English hierarchy are now finding space in the local movies, yes.
Okay. You played a doctor. How difficult was it playing that role?
Well, it wasn't all that difficult because I was brought up from a medical home. My mom is a midwife by profession.
Okay.
My auntie is like the whole family.
Did you have feedback?
Oh yes, I had a dream.
Thanks, Felicity. Next is Talking Point, and panelists will be discussing disagreements in the MPP. Stay tuned. Good evening.